Greetings, Butterfly Tribe, and welcome back to The Way You See Me Heart Healing Ministry. Today, we're going to resume with our series on healing from childhood trauma. Yesterday, we gave the scripture from Jeremiah 29:11, and we're going to open with that scripture again today. Jeremiah 29:11. It is written, "For I know the plans I am planning for you, declares Yahuwah, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and an expectancy." May Yahuwah add a blessing to the readers, hearers, and doers of his set apart word. So, yesterday, I described, or in our last recording, I described the point in my life where I felt hopeless and took matters in my own hand, and the Most High spared my life and carried out his plan, continued his plan in motion. When he said, "I know the plans I have for you," he knows everything about us. He knows all the trials, all the temptations, all the struggles. He knows everything that we're going to go through. All of it is written in the book of our life, the testament of our lives. So that was September 1993. I'm being homeschooled, and I remember that month seemed like it took forever to go by, but here we are in October, and on October 8th, how I celebrated my 16th birthday was waiting to deliver my baby. And nothing extravagant, just simply waiting for the biggest blessing that I could have received, which was life, bringing life into the world. So 2 weeks after my 16th birthday, on October 22nd, I woke up that Friday morning and I was in labor, mild labor pain, but I was spotting, and I knew through the teaching that I received that this was a sign that I was in labor. But I had an appointment that later that day, that afternoon. And so I told my mom that I was in labor, but I didn't want to be confined to the hospital. So I just figured I would wait until the appointment to make sure that I was in fact in labor, because the water bag had not broken. So I just thought I had time. And I did. So I go to my appointment that afternoon, which was I want to say my appointment was at 3. When I did get the checkup, I was in fact in labor and had dilated some, but my water bag still had not broken. So the doctor sent me to be admitted to the hospital to labor and delivery. So it was my mom, her father, and I. And we go to the hospital and they prep me for labor. And the nurses broke my water bag. And like I said, the pain, the contractions were increasing, but the labor wasn't progressing because my water hadn't broken. So they broke the water bag. At that time, they gave you enemas. They cleaned you out before delivery. So I had that. And after them breaking the water bag and giving me the enema and, the cleansing process, labor actually went very, very fast, because the pain was excruciating. I was in tears, and my mom sat with me, and she was holding my hand and, kind of helping me with through the contractions and giving me the support I needed. Her dad was there in the room, waiting for the birth of his child. But at the time, we had agreed for a DNA test. He still wasn't completely acknowledging that she was his child. So we agreed to a DNA test once she was born, because I refused to do the DNA test while I was pregnant. So we decided we would do it after she was born. So he was there. And like I said, there is no pain in this world like labor pains. Yes, that pain was excruciating. When I finally reached the point where they could give me an epidural, I had agreed that I wanted the epidural. And once they gave me the epidural, of course, I was able to manage the labor. I didn't even know when I was having contractions, and it went really quick. So we checked into the hospital anywhere between 3 and 4 o'clock. And she was born at 6:10 p.m. on that Friday. My mom came into the delivery room with me. He opted not to. He chose not to. So my mom came in the delivery room with me. And I remember seeing her for the first time. And I instantly fell in love. She was born 8 pounds, 4 ounces, with a head full of coal black hair, curly hair. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, and I was instantly in love. She was just beautiful. She made looking at her on that day made everything I had gone through leading up to this point of the delivery of her worth it. I forgot it all because I had found, she was my everything. I loved her, and she loved me. I can't even explain it. There is no words to explain how I felt when I saw her. And so once they cleaned her up and brought us back to the recovery, or to my room, to the personal room, they brought her in, and he was able to see her. Her father was able to see her, and he looked at her, and I remember he called his mom, and he said, "She's mine. We don't need a test." We didn't need a test anyway, but I was going to give them whatever they needed to, to prove that she was his. And so no DNA test was done. He admitted she was his child. At this point, to me, none of it even mattered. So I named her. The two names that I have been going back and forth with was Destiny Jade or Justice Destiny. But I ended up naming her Justice Destiny. And Justice. Justice is, or was, the reason that I was filled with hope all over again. I knew that I had to do what was best for her. She made me, and even from finding out that I was pregnant with her, carrying her in my womb and feeling her grow and move and kick, seeing her was something totally different. And I was like, we're going to be okay. I didn't know how, but she gave me hope. he gave me hope. Scripture says that children are a blessing of the Most High, and had she not been meant, then he wouldn't have allowed it. And he gave me a precious, beautiful gift filled with hope and love and a future, that expectancy. He knew I would fight for her. He gave me something other than myself to fight for, and I did. So she has my last name by his choice. He did not want to sign the birth certificate. And going back to the trauma, I have my mother's last name, my grandfather's name, because my dad didn't give me his last name. And so, again, I told you that things repeat and kind of usher you into different things. And so I gave her my last name. I gave her my grandfather's last name. If it was good enough for me, then it was good enough for her. And even when I got married, I kept my maiden name because of her. But yes. So we stayed in the hospital a week. I required another blood transfusion. Delivery was very, very hard on my body. The episiotomy, the doctor, I literally was cut from front to back. I was in so much pain, but again, the love kind of made it all better. But yes, I was so little. I probably was maybe 130 pounds at 9 months pregnant, delivering her. And I went from delivering her and instantly, my belly was soft, but I had a very muscular body, and my belly, after delivery, my belly was flat all over again. I was nothing but baby. The day that we were discharged from the hospital, she was born with jaundice, or they call it yellow jaundice. So they had her under the Billy light, and because of the color of her skin, she had like a yellowish undertone. I believe they couldn't figure out or didn't realize at first that she had jaundice, but the lab test showed that she did. So they kept her, and they had discharged me from the hospital already. So I had gone all day from my discharge waiting for them to discharge her, and they decided that she couldn't leave. They couldn't let her leave with her levels like that she needed at least another day under the light. So my mother she insisted that we leave. They couldn't readmit me, so I had to leave her there at the hospital. And I remember being terrified, like I did not want to leave without my baby. But my mom insisted that we leave at that time because I had gone without medication once they discharged me. So I needed to get medication, get home, and get comfortable. And it was so cold. She was born in October. It was really, really cold and rainy. And so I go home, and I remember the next day, they told me that she would be discharged. So I kept calling, and they wouldn't really give me any information. So I got my uncle to bring me to get my baby. And I remember looking at her, and during that time, that's when you started hearing about them swapping babies or babies being taken. So I remember before I left her, I looked her over. Like I wanted to make sure when I came back that I left with my baby. And it was her eyes. If you listen to some of my testimony, you'll hear me say that it was something that I always loved about my eyes. Like that was the good thing that I could see in myself, were my eyes. She had my eyes. And I remembered her eyes. So the next day when we get back to the hospital, they after some time, they do discharge her to my care, go over the paperwork with me and how to, things that I needed to do. And I remember looking at her in her eyes, and I knew she was my baby. And I took her home, and our journey began. Mother and daughter, our journey began. And my grandmother and my mother taught me how to be a mom to her. They stepped up to the plate and they guided me. They showed me how to take care of her. And I knew how to take care of babies, or changing and feeding a baby. I had fed and changed the baby, but your own baby is different. Waking up in the middle of the night, changing her diaper, feeding her, losing sleep. And they were there to assist. And I also was still doing schoolwork. I was still being homeschooled. So it was a lot going on. And the trauma of childbirth on my body was something that I wasn't prepared for. I can remember not being able to sit up for 5-6 weeks. And then I had to heal an extra week or so before I was released to go back to school because I couldn't sit up. I was in so much pain from the stitches and from the episiotomy being cut from front to back like that I literally had to sit sideways on a pillow for weeks. And I'm just grateful that I had my mother and my grandmother there to help me. Even my grandmother, they were old-fashioned. You could not leave the house after delivering a baby. You stayed home your 6 weeks. The only time I was allowed to leave was for her 2-week checkup and back in the house until I was released from the doctor to go. My grandmother was like, you need to allow your body to close. You're going to feel it later in your life. And I respected them enough to follow what they were telling me. So we stayed in the house 6 weeks with, people would come and visit us. They would come and see her, but we didn't go anywhere for those 6 to 7 weeks other than doctor's appointments. But that was my journey. That's how I became a mother. 2 weeks after my 16th birthday, I received the sweetest, most precious, sweet 16 gift, my daughter, who changed my life forever. It is her. She is the reason, when I looked at her, she is the reason that I said I wanted to be the best woman that I could be. The best example for her that I could be. Not perfect, but the best that I could be. And that's my journey to motherhood. Justice, if you ever take the time or come across this video, I love you, baby girl. She is about to celebrate her 31st birthday in October. I love you. Thank you so much for being the sweet, loving little girl that changed my life. Thank you for allowing me to be your mother. Thank you for being who you are to this day. You are more to me than you will ever know. I love you, sweetheart. I hope you have enjoyed this recording. This wasn't traumatic. This was where I found a glimpse of hope. Join us next time for The Way You See Me, Heart Healing Ministry.